case you have a slope like this. You have a slope like this. When the case that now is no longer, you can identify that no longer is not like a circular slip. It could be the case that you have backwalk material there. So and you know that when you fell, pretty much your soil will slide on the walk, or like you have a weak plane right there. You know that when you fell, you will fall as a wedge instead of like a circle. So that's something else like we need to deal with. So the next thing I want to talk about is the wedge method. So the wedge method is try to solve the problem with force equilibrium. Let me try to bring up my camera. Oh, come on. Okay. Let me try to have my camera back on. Okay. Okay. I'm back. Anyways, so this gives you the this method using force equilibrium. They try to fulfill both vertical and horizontal directions. It works for the long circular. And infinite slope. So at the beginning of this lecture, we introduced like when you have infinite slope, but that only works for sandy material, and also only work for total stress analysis. We didn't take account of the water table, but this one gives you the capability to do it. But it's quite complicated. Not complicated, but like just like mathematical intense. There's a lot of like equations you need to handle when you have a slope that try to fulfill the equilibriums at two conditions. So it involves like a two-step. First, you assume the factor of safety first. And then you will, the way it works, you will like chop, or you will divide your failure wedge into different sections. So this case, for example, we divide it into 3 different sections, 1, 2, and 3 right there. And then you will begin with the first block and try to balance all the vector force by iterating the factor of safety. So for example here, well, first of all, you start with like a block number 1. So this is my block number 1. So this is my block number 2, and this is my block number 3. So you start with block number 1. The most simple thing is, first of all, if we try to list out all the force right there, first, the most simple one is you have the weight. The weight is pointing down. and you know that it has like a friction force against the bottom of the slides. And you will have a normal force adding up against the slip surface. And in between slides, there will be a resultant force. So this is block number 1 adding to block number 2. And then you know that there will be a resulting force adding if it's formed like a block number 2 is at block number 2 form block number 1. So pretty much you have this force and this force here. So block 1, 2, sorry, force 1, 2, and then force 2, 1. So go back to block number 1. We can solve for T1. So W1 is very obvious. So the rate is always the most obvious one. And T1, you can solve for it with the Moore column. This equals to N1, which is the normal stress, times the friction angle, plus the cohesions, times the length. So this is the length. And then divided by, so this length 1, and then divided by the factor of safety. So you need to assume the factor of safety to start with. So you assume one factor of safety first, and then like see what you have. So that's why it can be tedious. You know, you never know what factor of safety you should start with. You will be kind of like through iterations. So if you assume one values and at the end of the day you realize you're far off, then you will go back to try another one, and then a couple of times, and then you will get a sense on what type of factor safety you should use. So this is quite tedious on this type of analysis. But anyways, you know like the T1, and if phi pi equals 0, then your T1 will be equals to CL1 over factor of safety. So that will make our life a little bit easier if this is a cohesive material. There's no friction angle. So you know your W1. And now you know the orientations of T1. So this is your T1, and you can calculate this. So this is the orientation of T1 is a vector. So you need to know the orientations and also the scale. So let's say you know T1 now. So this is your T1. This is the directions of T1. And the next is you also know. So let's try to keep it consistent with the color, make your life easier. But I just want, well, nothing wrong. I just want to make like a more, which is better to see it. So this is T1, and let's say this is the N1, right? So N1, this is a 90 degree. So you know the directions of T1. And then, like for example, you can calculate the magnitudes of T1. So now you know like a T1 is this much, for examples. So T1 equals to the cohesions times safety. So you know it's right there. And then now you also know the orientations of N1. You know, you start from there. Well, I just move it here. You will make my life easier. So this, the directions or the orientations of N1. So this is where the N1 pointing to. You not necessarily know N1 because you don't know N1. But there's a diagram method helps you to solve the problem without knowing T1. Sorry, without knowing N1. You know T1. So I move the scale, just make my life a little bit easier. Oops, like this. So now assume this much here is what you calculate. So T1 is easy. You can calculate that, but you need to assume factor of safety. But N1 you don't know, but you don't need to know because you know W1, you know T1. And in order for this to be within equilibriums, at the end of the day, you must be a closed loop. You must go back to where you start. So this is your F12, right? So F12, we assume that it is the horizontal directions. It's a horizontal internal force because that's the way that we draw a wedge, a block. So this one must be closing here. So with this, it helps you to calculate the amount of N2. So here is the amount of N, right? And then with this method, you can also calculate F12. You can find out F12. You can find out F12. So any questions here? I don't want to lose anyone. But everything you realize is not based on the assumed factor of safety you start with. If you assume it as a different factor of safety, the scale at the T right there will change. And then you will couple the N values and also the F12. Is it a correct factor of safety? We don't know until at the end of the block. Because if the factor of safety is correct, at the end of the day, all the force will be caused at wedge number 3. So any questions here? I don't want to lose anyone. Any questions here? Okay, very good. So moving on the second wedge. So you find out F12. So you will know you find out F12. So you will find out F210. They are equal magnitude, but just at opposite directions. So at the beginnings, what you know is the W2, right? So this one is kind of so W2 is kind of like a free information. As long as you know the area, you know the unit rate, you can find out the rate of the block. And now you will know F21. So you know the magnitude and you know the directions. So you can construct F21. So this is your F21. And the next thing you can do is again, you know the T22. Because so T2 is in this directions. Because T2 is pretty much as long as you know the cohesions and you know the length of the bottom of the slides, then you can find out. Of course, you have a consistent factor of safety. And then now you know the orientations of your T2, and then you bring it to your force diagram. You also know the amplitudes. Then you know the orientations of the normal force and two. So you know those orientations, and then you will have this. Well, this will make my life easier. So let me stop there. So we realize he has a very hard time to close the loop. then you will know the factor of safety you assume at the beginning is incorrect already. But anyways, let's say like you go there, you know the orientations. So again, like I just make my life easier. So that's the amplitudes of the T2 is supposed to be. And again, you only know about the orientations of N2, but you don't know about the magnitude of N, the normal force. But that's okay. This will help us to find out now, because at the end of the day, we also assume that our internal force at the second from the 3 is at this orientations. So we can find out the magnitudes of that. And it is given at to the third block, but at opposite orientations. So with that, we can solve for it here. So finally, you will get to all your final block. So you know the weight of this. And then now we know the orientations of this, adding at the other side. You also know the P3 of it. Well, first of all, like you have the weight, you have your friction angle, and then you have your N3. So now you have your friction angles. I'm sorry, the frictional force. You know you will go this way, which you can calculate. Be right there. And then you know that at the end of the day, it should be close from the so to make my life easier, I'll do it again. So all the scale need to be correct, otherwise like you won't close. So this is W3. So this T need to be a little bit longer. I mean this like internal force. So everything need to be at the scale in proportions. So you know if your weight is this much, your F need to represent the scale as the weight. So this is F32. Let me use consistent color. So red is the frictional force. Oops. And this need to be in this directions. And at the end of the day, you also know you don't know your normal force right there, but you know the directions, you know the orientations, and this need to be close. So now I'm not closing. That means I'm not correct. So should be like something like this. So maybe the F, if I do it right, you need to be like even like at a higher. So if I at this point, you see like this is a perfect examples. If I'm at this point, and if like my force at the end of the day, like you know, I realize at the right orientations, but my end is not closing. Go back to my original point, which means the factor of safety that I assume at the beginning is not correct, and I need to redo the whole thing from the beginning to assume another factor of safety. At the end of the day, if I do it correct, I should be able to close my loop. So this is a paper killer. If you do this like a truly by manually, you need to use paper after papers, trial after trials, and then you can get the factor of safety correct.